A voice for the spirit bears. How one boy inspired millions to save a rare animal. A voice for the spirit bears. Simon peered through a telescope from a lookout post in Yellowstone National Park. Hours ticked by, rain soaked his clothes, still he didn't budge. Finally, a mother grizzly bear emerged from the pine forest with 2 cubs by her side. She was huge, especially when she stood on her hind legs. Coyotes quickly retreated. No one messed with a grizzly. 7-year-old Simon wished he was as powerful as a bear. Back home, he felt anything but powerful. Words formed clearly in his head, but when he opened his mouth, the sounds collided. It's just nervousness that makes him stutter, the doctors said reassuringly. He'll be fine. On the playground, Simon didn't feel fine. Kids teased him, chose him last or not at all. But in the woodlands behind his house, he felt happier. There he talked easily to the squirrels. He photographed the wildlife. He read and reread books, especially his favorite one about a grizzly named Wob. Simon also liked watching the news with his parents. One day there was a story about a forest above Canada's border in Alaska that needed protection. The trees were going to be cut down, destroying the homes of the bears that lived there. Those bears are helpless. It's not fair, said Simon. The next day he opened a lemonade stand. Help save the bears, he called as people passed by. He wrote to the Canadian Prime Minister and the President of the United States and sent the $60 he'd raised to stop the cutting. Simon was thrilled when a few months later he heard the news that a park had been created for the bears. His words had helped make a difference. In school, it was harder to make a difference. Instead of waiting for Simon to get his words out, kids finished a sentence for him. Most lunchtimes he ate in the bathroom to avoid the bullies. On those days, Simon focused on his love of bears, reading about them for hours. The summer he turned 13, he became fascinated by a rare type of black bear called the spirit bear. 1 in 10 of these special bears was born with the creamy white fur that gave them their name, and they were found only in the Great Bear Rainforest. That was just a few hours' journey from him. But there, too, loggers were shrinking the bear's habitat, cutting down trees. Once again, Simon felt he had to do something. If one letter had worked before, imagine what lots of letters could do, he thought. As Simon stood in front of his classmates, his legs shook. His hands were sweaty. His brain raced. Be powerful like the grizzly from Yellowstone, he told himself. Try. The spirit bears had no voice, so he had to find his. He opened his mouth and his words spilled out and snapped into place. By protecting the home of the spirit bears, we can ensure that they will be wild and free forever. Simon went on to explain if the bears were chased from their home to live among regular black bears, these rare animals would be lost forever. He visited every classroom in the school. He convinced students to put pen to paper to stand up for what was right. 700 letters flooded the government. But the cutting continued. Simon refused to give up. Talking to people is like dropping a pebble in the pond and seeing the ripples, he told his mom. If I reach one person, they can reach another, and so on. So he wrote out what he needed to say. He memorized the words and rehearsed again and again, a trick he had discovered that stilled his stuttering. Wanting to be taken seriously, he visited businesses and other schools wearing his suit and tie. Some of the kids made fun of him, calling him bear boy and weirdo, words that stung. Stand tall like the grizzly from Yellowstone, Simon kept reminding himself. The next year, Simon asked some friends to help him start a group they would call the Spirit Bear Youth Coalition. His idea was that students from around the world, kids who cared about the bears the way he did, could share information in school and online. In time, millions joined, boosting his confidence. Simon even found himself writing to journalists and thundering away at rallies for the environment. By saving the spirit bears, you're protecting all other life around them. More and more people began to pay attention. Famous actors, pop stars, and members of royalty joined their forces with Simon's. He even became friends with the world-famous wildlife conservationist Dr. Jane Goodall, who had become interested in Simon's work after meeting him on a boat trip. Then a team of researchers asked Simon to join their expedition to study the spirit bears. It was the chance of a lifetime. He begged his parents to let him go, even though actually seeing one of the white bears would be a long shot. Finally, they said yes. Yes. For days, Simon and the team hiked over jagged rocks, across streams, and down slippery slopes in the Great Bear Rainforest. To Simon, it felt like they were walking in a forest right out of a fairy tale. Then one afternoon, as he crouched in a bed of leafy skunk cabbage, Simon heard a twig snap. He looked up and saw a chocolate-eyed spirit bear sniffing the air. "Stay still," one of the researchers whispered. "We don't want him to feel threatened in any way." Simon stayed calm, and his words to the bear came easily. "I won't let you down." With that, the spirit bear ambled away, taking Simon's promise with it. And Simon did keep his promise. For the next few years, he continued to work with other activists, forestry companies, and local indigenous communities and the government until finally land in the Great Bear Rainforest was awarded to the spirit bears. Simon Jackson had given the spirit bears a voice by first finding his own. The first spirit bear that Simon Jackson encountered in the Great Bear Rainforest.